Imagine a sound off in the distance. You never heard this sound before. Crack, rush. And then suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, from a normal river comes a wall of water, a literal tsunami. 18, 19-year-old boys strapping 7-year-olds onto their shoulders and wading through chest-deep water. My trip to Kerrville and the details that any man, any woman, any person interested in nature and survival and a tragedy, a story, we share with you today. Along with our conversation with President Donald Trump. 2, Fauci used the autopen to pardon or to be pardoned by Joe Biden. Almost all of his commutations seem to have been delegated. An autopen responsible. Was it when there was over 2,700 commutations in one day? Was it done by the autopen? And President Trump sounds off on the Fuhrer over Jeffrey Epstein. 3, my review of F1. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page, Apple, Spotify. Please hit subscribe, leave a 5-star review, or just jump into the comments section. Set that reminder to join us every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time on Fox News YouTube. Or if you're scanning through Facebook every day about lunchtime, make sure you hop into the comments section, and you, too, are a friend of the program. You are a member of the Willisha. Tinfoil Pat, Two-A-Days Dan, the crew back together. After what felt like a short weekend, fellas, I got home from Central Texas about 1 a.m. on Friday night. I drove 10 hours on Friday. Got up at 5:30 to head down south. Got back home at 1 a.m. And I liked it so much, the road trip. Not the circumstances or what I bared witness to in the hill country. But I like just driving. That when I got up on Saturday morning, I got a buddy, said, let's grab a cup of coffee. And we went and drove in the country for about another 7 hours on Saturday. We wanted to drive around, look at the country. And I got to tell you something. Something I realized. Everyone's like, you got to be tired, man. You only got like 6 hours of sleep. You've been driving all day. And it's true. But I don't know how you feel, but there's something about getting in your truck, grabbing you a tin of nicotine, grabbing you a coffee, and grabbing you a buddy, and just letting roadside go underneath your tires that is completely relaxing to me. Conversation, music, podcast. I got to tell you something. When I compare it to some of the other ways that I spend my leisure time, like sitting on the couch and burning through 1.5 seasons of Severance, that's my latest binge television watching, Severance on Apple TV. I sure look back on the drive a lot more fondly than I do on the binge watch. I got to tell you, it's something. I don't know if you guys do that, but I think it's healthy. And I think I've always known that. I went to school in California, and I used to drive from Texas to California, which is about a 2.5-day drive. Stayed in little roadside motels in northern New Mexico. And looking back on that, I love it. You guys ever do that, just the road trip? And by the way, not with the family tinfoil. I've done the family road trip, and I love that.
Way different.
But now I'm talking about the dude road trip. Even the solo road trip. There's something cathartic. There's something purging, mind-clearing about it. It's relaxing. You ever do that, tinfoil?
I don't, Will, because I have extreme anxiety on driving anxiety. So I can't go over bridges or anything like that without freaking out.
Limits you.
Yeah.
What is this guy's personality to-a-days? I can't, having not ever met him in person, but known him for years now.
An enigma.
There's just wrinkles that keep coming in. I know, it's just wrinkles that keep coming in. A phobia of driving over bridges. I mean,
you know, they're pretty good. They're pretty stable.
Such phobia.
I used to be fine, and then I guess it's like something subconscious in my, from an accident I had, and it's just kind of like metastasized into this weird phobia of highways and bridges and stuff. So I only take back roads.
Well, that's better anyway. You don't want to be driving on an interstate. That doesn't apply to what I'm talking about. If you're on interstates, it's not the same thing. You're on highways, it's not the same thing. You need to be on country roads. And the best are the 2-lane country roads where they'll still let you go like 70 miles an hour, but you're getting to see a lot of countryside. I'm telling you, how about this? If you're out there this summer, the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, is highly encouraging the road trip. And I got to tell you, I'm not carrying water for my friend. I'm not carrying water for the administration to say, I think he's on to something. I think this summer, if you have a Saturday morning, man, I think you load up a couple podcasts of Will Cain Country and you hit the road, burn through it. Grab you a can of Lucy, grab you a hot black coffee, start early, and just tell me you don't come home that day a little more clear-headed. That's what I did on Friday. Drove down to Central Texas to see it with my own eyes to interview the President of the United States. And I wanted to share with you off this weekend some of my experience down there on Friday. A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about Joe Biden's use of autopen for who knows how many commutations, but it could be for thousands. But it also seems to include Dr. Anthony Fauci, plus Donald Trump has weighed in on the furor around Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to get into that in a little bit with the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett, but let's get to off the weekend. Story number one. Kerrville, Texas is a beautiful part of Texas. It's currently something that's hard to describe. I spent much of Friday in Kerr County driving down, looking at the Guadalupe River. This story has been one that not is only hard to tell, it's hard to listen to. And if I'm being completely transparent with you, I'm not even sure that it rates. I'm not sure you want to hear. I'm not sure the television audience wants to hear because it's so hard to hear. It's so sad. But in thinking about this story over the weekend and what I got to witness with my own eyes, I think it's worthwhile for all of us to understand. I think it's worthwhile to try to put yourself in this position, not just because of empathy, but because of survival, to understand the wrath of nature, to understand the suddenness of death, to understand exactly what happened in Hunt, in Ingram, along the Guadalupe, which continued over the weekend in Texas along the Lampasas River. And for that matter, wherever you live, North Carolina, the Northeast, the nature of rivers. I went down because we had an opportunity to interview President Donald Trump. He made the trip along with the First Lady, Melania, to visit the disaster of Central Texas. They met with victims' families. They conducted a roundtable with government officials. They took a helicopter tour. President Trump shook hands with first responders, stood in front of debris piles, talked to firefighters, talked to local officials, and then took roughly 10 to 15 minutes to talk with me. It wasn't exclusive for the Will Cain show on the Fox News channel. And it was good to see the president. It was good on multiple levels. It was good on a personal level because it's been quite some time since I've seen the president. And it was good on the level of just being an American. It does strike me. It does strike me that it's important for a president to show up. Now, listen, it's not always easy for a president to show up, not just because he maintains an incredibly difficult schedule and he's focused on international affairs and the economic policies of the United States, but also because when a president drops into a disaster zone, it changes the disaster zone. I mean, the Secret Service protection, the detail, the road closures. Still, 2 years ago, I stood in the devastation of Lahaina, Maui, and it was utter and complete devastation. And it did matter that there was no visit from the President of the United States, not for quite some time. Eventually there would be, but not for quite some time. And Hawaii is very far from Washington, D.C., but it means something. It means something to the American people when they know that the President of the United States cares about the people of America. And I saw that on Friday. I saw that firsthand. We had roughly a 12-minute conversation wherein we talked about what he'd seen, what he'd talked about, what he'd heard from victims' families. And the main thing he had to say to me was he was struck by love. Yes, agony and pain and despair, but love. Love for one another, love for their family members, and love for a community that they want to see rebuilt. And I asked him this question. I'm not sure if the question is included in his answer, so I'm going to tell you what the question was. But the question was, we're 1 year removed from an attempt on your life. You have grandchildren. You have 2 daughters. Do you at all feel like this gives you any unique perspective on what people could be dealing with, in some cases, close brushes with death, in other cases, complete loss? And here's what was said by President Donald Trump.
And it's hard to believe a year is up. And here we are. A lot of things have happened since then, including the presidency. So, I have an obligation to do a good job, I feel, because I was really saved. I was really saved by somebody very special. People that are shooters, I'm not so much of a shooter, but people that were shooters say it's almost impossible that was a miss. I mean, it was a hit, but it was a miss. Although I do get that throbbing feeling every once in a while.
Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit. No, I owe a lot, and I hope the reason I was saved was to save our country. We had a country that was, I don't say dead because it's too strong, but we had a country that was really very close to being finished, in my opinion. And now we have the hottest country in the world. That's why I'm so saddened by this.
That interview, that clip was posted on the Fox News social feed and Tinfoil and Two-A-Days. I think one of our jobs is always, not one of our jobs, our job is to tell the truth. Inside of that job, one of the jobs is to make sure that we are accurate. One thing I've noticed is in the wake of a natural disaster, by the way, it is the worst game of telephone that you've ever seen. I mean, the exaggerations, the made-up stories, the conspiracy around a natural disaster is really something to behold. And when you're in the middle, when you go, when you visit, whether or not it's Maui, whether or not it's North Carolina, and now that it's Texas, I mean, not only do you see the truth, hear the truth, but, you also understand how important the truth is. I think there's a lot of people on social media that need to understand that the things that they say can really negatively impact the people affected. It really can. And I just think you have a huge responsibility to make sure you get it right. While not being closed-minded and not dismissing things as conspiracy, you have a huge obligation to make sure that you fully understand, because it causes real pain. It really does. That clip was posted on the Fox social channels. And speaking of conspiracy, do you guys realize how vast the conspiracy is on the left? Now, this is measured by social media commentary and replies, but how vast the conspiracy on the left is that the assassination attempt in Butler is fake. The president says to me that his ear still throbs. And I mean, my social media replies were covered up with lefties in the Fox News channel's feed going, it was staged, yep. It's fake. And I was shocked.
I see it all the time.
Yeah, is that something you're familiar with? Like Brooklyn Brunch Crew?
No, not them, but more online. I see that constantly in our feeds, Fox feeds, comment. Anytime we talk about it on this show, there's a flood of them, of just, it was staged. That who is he? That it couldn't be real. He didn't get hit. Where's his ear? Why isn't his ear messed up more? That kind of thing. It's wild.
How do they explain the death of Corey Compatore? How do they explain that? Do they say that he was sacrificed for this fake assassination attempt? Are they saying that the would-be assassin shot his ear, meant to miss, not to kill, but ended up killing innocent bystanders? What is the implication of the conspiracy? Or is it a glass shard? That it didn't happen at all?
Yeah,
that it's a glass well, then, again, but then how about the death of the firefighter, Corey Compatore?
Exactly.
I don't understand what the conspiracy might be.
That was just a mistake, and so he wasn't supposed to die.
Yeah,
nobody else was supposed to be. It was a mistake, and that's
says
why
these people, by the way.
That's what they say. It was just supposed to be garner sympathy for Trump, and nobody else was supposed to die. This is what they say. Yeah.
And so this dude was supposed to target his ear like that, or just miss completely, something like that.
So he could win the election. That's what they say.
Right. Wow. You're gone. You're gone.
Yep.
Cuckoo, gone. You're out. You're out to lunch. You're not worthy. You're walk away from, meet you, walk away. You ever walk away in a conversation, mid-conversation? Not often. I can't think of many I have. You walk away. You're by. Mid-sentence. You see my heels. Speaking of the assassination attempt in Butler, a little bit later today on the Fox News channel, tune in at 4 p.m. Eastern time on the Will Cain Show. We're going to be looking into the question that I think very few people are looking into, and that is, who was Thomas Crooks? But the president there was important. It was important for the people of Texas. I've said from the beginning, this is not simply a Texas story. This is not simply a Central Texas story. This is an American story. This is a parental story. This is a story of human survival, human loss, human tragedy. And it's not just the girls at Camp Mystic. By the way, I got to visit a camp. I got a note right before I was going to leave town. And it's all off the record, but I don't think he'll mind, but from Congressman Chip Roy. And he said, I'm going over here. Would you like to come to visit a camp? And I said, yes, I would. I'd like to see that. And I drove from Kerrville to Hunt, and then where the camps are situated around that area. It's where the South Fork and the North Fork of the Guadalupe meet together into the main branch. And it's different. It's even different than Kerrville. I'm talking about 70-foot tall cypress trees with 5-foot base trunks snapped over like matchsticks, one other on top of another. I'm talking about cabins at camps gone, like ripped from their foundation, float down the river. I'm talking about stories, and a lot of this is off the record, so I'm not going to tell you what, where, who, but I do know amazing heroic stories of camp counselors, camp directors, camp owners wading into fast water to get kids out, 7, 8-year-olds strapped to their back. And I'm not talking one trip. I'm talking 10 trips. I'm talking 15 trips. I'm talking about 40 kids. And it's amazing. It's something else. And you just, I think the reason I want to revisit this today is not only because I spent my time on that, because I want to communicate to you. I want to communicate the level of humanity. I can't think of a better word. Just humanity. All of it, man. The sadness, the tragedy, the heroism. All right, so mutual friends have reached out to me. I knew this 10 years ago when I was working at ESPN. In 2015, the story hit my radar. And I had mutual friends involved. And I'd heard about this guy, okay? And it really struck me. I wanted to do a fundraiser in 2015. My career wasn't in a place where I could, like, marshal the weight of ESPN or put it together the way I have been able to do since then. But I heard about this story, and it was just horrific. Okay, so in 2015, the Blanco River floods. 2 families in a house are hanging out. One of the families is the family of Jonathan McCombs. I met Jonathan for the first time on Friday, and he shared his story with us. And his story is something else, and it's eye-opening for you. And I ask you to think about this and understanding what happened. And I also honestly think it's impossible not to put yourself into his situation. So let's start with first hearing from Jonathan McCombs. And you said you kept hearing something, an odd sound. You didn't know what the sound was. And it was dry land. You were standing on dry land. And within a minute, you figured out what the sound was. And it was this, now something we've all come to understand, a wall of water coming towards the house. And before you could even get back to the house, it was completely surrounded in water.
Well, we were able to run as the water was coming up. Everybody was still asleep inside our house. And so we were able to get up there, get everybody up. And by the time we came back outside, water was all the way around the house.
So here's the story. Jonathan went to the Guadalupe River, rather the Blanco River, for the first time in his life. I said, is this someplace you often vacation? He goes, first time, man. He was with his friend and their families. Everybody gone to bed, and he and his buddy were hanging out about 11:30, and they kept hearing a sound. What is that sound? What was that sound? They went down the river, nothing. The river's normal. Kept hearing a sound, After a while, it took a little bit, but a couple minutes, it became obvious. He's like, the house is raised up on pillars, a porch up there, and they're down on the ground underneath the house down towards the river. And they see it coming. And it's trees snapping and a wall of water, a tsunami headed at them, which is wild for me because when I think of flood, I think of water rising. Flood, water rise, not a tsunami. Not that, not instantaneous. And that's exactly what it was. The sound was the wall of water coming at them. He takes off running with his buddy back to the house. By the time they get to the house, I think he's in knee-deep water. They get into the house. Wasn't very long until he heard a thud, probably a gigantic cypress tree. Could be a boulder, could have been a car. Hit the pylons. The house immediately pivots and comes off of its pillars. And now the house is floating down the river. They had a couple minutes inside the house before it hit a bridge. At the point it hits the bridge, it takes the second story off the house and it basically crumbles the house. Now everybody is fighting for their life in the river. He said, I remember every detail, Will, and I can tell myself I did everything possible. There's not much you can do. It's now my job to try to tell you what that means. He told me he floated 11 miles. That's when he eventually got out of the water.
Jeez,
11 miles later. You know how long it took him to go 11 miles? 35 minutes.
Get out.
You are going 20, 25 miles an hour in the water. And it's full of trees and roots and treetops and cars and everything else. So in the beginning, he could hear his kids screaming. He could hear everything. What do? You do. He did tell me eventually Boy Scout mode kicked in. He found a V in the tree. He got himself in a tree, got in the V to break the water. At some point down the river, he tried twice to climb up, fell back in, further downriver. He eventually gets out. He's the only survivor. The other family completely wiped out. Their parents, so two parental age at that point, probably you're going to go 60s, die. His wife, 2 kids, die. Still haven't found his daughter, by the way. She's never been found. I don't tell you this for grief porn. I don't tell you this to make you sad. I don't tell you this for any reason but to help you understand exactly what we're talking about, because it's taken a while for me to understand what we're talking about here. It's taken a while. I always thought, well, why don't you run away from the rising water? There's no running away because it's not rising water. It's a tsunami coming at you. And, you know, I'm a super confident swimmer, and sometimes it's hard for me to put myself in these situations. I told a friend this morning, I've body surfed, I've surfed, I've done everything in the water. I always have overconfidence in my ability. I do open water swims, not just the Navy SEAL swim, but I've done it in Hawaii, in pretty deep ocean. One time I felt out of control, and it was on the East Coast. It was on the Atlantic, and I went to body surf before a storm was coming, a hurricane. You know, in the days before, there's big waves, but the storm's not there. But the water, man, it's like a washing machine. And I was humbled. For the first time, I was like, I don't have control over where my body is going. And I wasn't in danger, but I'm in control in the water. I'm super confident, overconfident. And that was the first time I was like, no, I'm not in charge. I mean, I've been pinned under the water by big waves before, and I'm calm in that situation because I know what's going to happen. There's a rhythm to it. Hold your breath, Will. Hold your breath. Swim up. It's scary when you come up and you're still in the foam, and you're like, try to get a breath. You got to go down a minute more, come up, it'll be calm. But this is different. This is like, I can barely control my arms and my legs. And I think that's what we're talking about here with this water, right? That's what we're talking about happening with these rivers. Go ahead, 2 days.
No, it reminds me of the movie The Impossible about the Thailand tsunami. That's a real view of what that is. Like how much it just drags you, and you're hitting debris as you're going along. It's tearing up your body. You know, it's incredible the power of that kind of water rush. Right.
I did see somebody, and the negative comments always super positive comments on that powerful story from Jonathan McComb. And somebody said, why would you make that poor man relive that? And I'm going to tell the answer to that random person that said to me, because he wanted to. He was there to do that. Why? For 2 reasons. One, he wants others who are affected like this to know that you can rebuild through faith in God, through belief. You can go from that and you can live. You can move on. Obviously, I don't mean move on like you forget, but you can not stay in the depths of despair forever. And second, he's highly involved in this thing called Texas Search and Rescue, which is active there. He's there now helping people that were in his situation 10 years ago. So that's why you want to share his story. And that's why today, in part for you, I wanted to revisit and share that story here today. Joe Biden used the autopen to pardon Anthony Fauci and thousands, perhaps thousands of others. Plus, Donald Trump addresses Epstein coming up on Will Cain Country. 2,490 commutations in one day. How many of those done by autopen? It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at foxnews.com. Fox News YouTube, Fox News Facebook, terrestrial radio, Apple, Spotify. On demand or live, we're here for you 5 days a week here at Will Cain Country. The Daily Signal's national correspondent, Tony Kinnett, is also here for us today. And we're glad to have him on the show. What's up, Tony?
Oh, just living the Hoosier dream up here. How's Texas?
It's rainy still. It's been the rainiest July that I can remember. We've obviously well discussed the tragedy and the reasons and the negative effects of that. One thing I'll tell you is, man, it's usually dry and hot. Now it's humid and hot and wet. It's amazing. Everything's green. Let's put it that way. Everything's green, and every lake is full of water here in Texas. Hey, Tony, I wanted to get to this today with you. There's two really stories dominating the news. The first, the New York Times is reporting that Joe Biden used the autopen for his pardon of Dr. Anthony Fauci, and he may have not been the one to give the final sign-off on this. I want to read this from the New York Times to you, Tony. This is sort of a TikTok. I want to be clear. I read from the New York Times. At the January 19th meeting, which took place in the Yellow Oval Room of the White House, Mr. Biden kept his aides until nearly 10 p.m. to talk through decisions, according to people familiar with the matter. The emails show an aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft summary to Mr. Biden's decisions at that meeting to Jeff Zients. At 10:03 p.m. The assistant forwarded to a guy named Mr. Reed and Zients, asking for their approval, then sent the final version, copying many participants and aides at 10:28. 3 minutes later, Zients hit reply all and wrote, "I approve the use of the autopen for the execution of all the following pardons." It sure seems to, now maybe that Biden said it in the meeting earlier, whatever, who knows. Zients gave final sign-off on the pardon of Dr. Anthony Fauci using autopen.
Now, I got to ask you, Will, I remember casting a vote in the last couple of elections. I never remember checking a box that said Zients. So I know he's not constitutionally the president of the United States. He doesn't have the authority to grant any kind of pardons or decision. Again, I know you've also cast a lot of votes in the past. You remember voting for a Zients as president of the United States?
I don't remember him on the ticket.
No, and I got to say, at least you read the legible part of that New York Times article. My producer and I were going through it before this, and Joe Biden's interview is so incoherent because they ask him about this. Credit to the New York Times, the one piece of credit we'll give them. They ask specifically about this, and Biden went on some long, meandering track that he was known for throughout his entire presidency. This is not a binding signature. There is nothing about this that is a binding pardon. And despite the last-minute attempts to try to really get in there and save these individuals likely in these various probably criminal actions, depending on the investigation and how that goes, I just don't think that it ended up being as neatly tied up as perhaps they would have preferred it, no matter how many late-night meetings with aides they scurried through at the last second.
Yeah, it and the reason that it matters is, right, it brings up the validity of the pardon of Dr. Anthony Fauci. To your point on the stuff that Biden said, here's a quote. "I made every single one of those, and including the categories when we set this up to begin with. And so, but I understand why Trump would think that, because obviously I guess he doesn't focus much. Anyway, so yes, I made every decision." Dr. Anthony Fauci, it's been discussed, Tony, could be guilty of perjury. He could be guilty of standing in front of Congress and giving false testimony, among other things, by the way. But every time you bring this discussion up, there's a discussion of, but he got a pardon, so there's no accountability. But there's a Supreme Court potential decision on whether or not he did get a pardon. Was this an appropriate use of the autopen? Is this a valid pardon?
There's also a question before the Supreme Court as to whether the president can issue like general blanket sweep pardons for crimes that may have been committed but not prosecuted or indicted yet. So if there's some kind of a crime that I committed and the president, not knowing that I made those crimes or that I committed those crimes, issued a blanket sweep pardon, is that under his authority to grant a pardon or the governing executive body when the indictment and the charges are laid out? Supreme Court's never ruled on that. An appellate court has never ruled on anything like that. That's not set in stone. Additionally, you have Fauci not just committing perjury, perhaps, allegedly, as we say in the industry, but then you also have individuals who may have committed a type of financial fraud by misallocating funds from Congress, by giving funds to institutions or organizations in which Congress did not allocate money, that violates national security clauses as well as economic clauses. I mean, there are more skeletons in this closet than a Spirit Halloween display. It's ridiculous.
I don't think about Spirit Halloween displays as much as you should in life. Nice analogy. But you make a great point. I actually love this. I'd love to hear what the Supreme Court has to say. It's a little bit like pre-crime, like from Minority Report. So Fauci, Hunter Biden, his brothers, Joe Biden's brothers,
Larry O'Connor, the front man
got
between AmeriCorps and them, of course, as well, because, I mean, that man fronting not only the Biden cover-up of the mental collapse, but also that between that AmeriCorps $200,000 check that James Comer posted a copy of to X. I mean, I don't mean to say that this is getting a little bit of mob mentality situation here, but you really do have a situation where they hired a man to broker campaign deals between medical companies for mouthwash cancer treatments during the campaign. And that's not hearsay. That is direct checks that have been published to social media by the House Oversight Committee. And that's also linked into this. And who knows if that's connected to Fauci. Biden has mentioned them in the same sentence before.
But what I like that you're bringing up is, okay, so here, let me veer off the road and come back to this. Here is Joe Biden issued, I have it right here, 2,490 commutations. That's more in a single day than any prior president granted over their entire presidency. He issued last-minute preemptive pardons for his 3 siblings and their spouses. He issued last-minute preemptive pardons for Fauci, Milley, General Mark Milley, and members of the House January 6th committee. He pardoned his son Hunter after repeatedly saying he wouldn't and insisting no one is above the law. He commuted the sentences of 37 out of 40 federal death row prisoners. And he did the vast thousands, 2,490 commutations more in a single day by doing so according to criteria, not individual cases. So if they're sentencing criteria and crime criteria hit the certain patterns, right? Then they got commutations. And by the way, that's how many of these were done by the autopen, and final judgment call was made by many of his underlings because he approved categories of people to be had their sentences commuted. But what I'm more interested in, that's grotesque on its face.
And also possibly
what I'm interested in is what you said. But the preemptive pardon, you're not charged with anything, but we're going to go ahead and give you a blanket commutation. That cannot be constitutional. So what? If Fauci in the future, it's discovered that in that time frame of his pardon, literally murdered 10 people, you wouldn't be able to do anything? Nothing?
Yeah, so that's the weird question here, because again, this all goes back to how the Nixon pardon was worded. The idea of, well, any crimes that he may have committed during that time, and it was allowed to stand as kind of a rebinding the country moment. And I've said for quite a while, that was a huge mistake to let that stand as that was set, because it sets up this weird law through precedent situation. Well, because it was worded this way, therefore Ketanji Brown Jackson can break out the crayons and say, well, actually, it means something totally different. That's not how the Constitution and U.S. law was supposed to function. The Founding Fathers, in both the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers, made it explicitly clear that U.S. law was not supposed to be used to create what they called a French argumentation, mixing up the law in order to create these spurious situations based on the wealth of the person in front of you being charged with something. And here we have that for Anthony Fauci. What he said in the past doesn't matter unless it does. What he said before Congress doesn't matter unless it does. The money that he sent places for gain-of-function research doesn't matter unless it does. And then when you ask Biden about it directly, we end up finding out that he cannot articulate specific instances that happened, but what he said in those meetings was very legally binding because he gave the orders definitively to those aides. Couldn't remember what executive orders regarding natural gas he signed to Mike Johnson of Louisiana. But oh yeah, he could remember an order that he gave at a 2:30 in the morning meeting between aides that some guy named Zeiss authorized, whoever he is.
Meanwhile, much of the right, Tony, has been focused on Jeffrey Epstein. Turning Point USA had a conference this weekend, and that was the subject matter of a lot of the different speeches given by various conservative commentators. There were reports on Friday that Dan Bongino, assistant FBI director, was very upset with Attorney General Pam Bondi over the way the Jeffrey Epstein thing was handled. And then President Donald Trump posted this, I believe it was on Saturday. It's a long post on Truth Social. I'll share some of it with you. He said, "What's going on with my, quote, boys, and in some cases, quote, gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and, quote, selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein over and over again. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and the criminals of the Biden administration who conned the world with the Russia hoax, the 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell, and more. They created the Epstein files just like they created the fake Hillary Clinton Christopher Steele dossier they used on me. And now my so-called, quote, friends are playing right into their hands." He goes on to say, if he seems to be addressing the way this has worked, Tony, is people seem to be having this conversation on 3 levels, primarily 2. Level 1, that the United States has a problem with powerful pedophiles running cabals of pedophilia, and Jeffrey Epstein is the typical example or the preeminent example of this, and we need accountability. That's one level. Level 2, the left is jumping on that, and they're saying, and it includes Donald Trump, and that's why you won't release it. That's why I stopped just before Donald Trump wrote this line. Why didn't these radical left lunatics release the Epstein files? If there's anything there that could have hurt the MAGA movement, why wouldn't they use it? He has a great point. Like, if Trump is in the files, wouldn't Joe Biden have done something about it? Like he did everything else. The entire left did everything they could to stop Donald Trump. This would have been a good way. And then the third level is, not as often discussed, but the third level, Tony, is the reason that you're not getting the full disclosure on Jeffrey Epstein is because it has national security implications, and Jeffrey Epstein was part of something bigger, perhaps connected to foreign intelligence agencies, and you'll never hear the truth, no matter who's the president, because of national security concerns. 3 levels to what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein. I guess I should add a 4th. It's all big nothing burger, and Jeffrey Epstein's the only criminal involved, along with Ghislaine Maxwell, in this entire ordeal.
I mean, the first and most important thing that we can take away from this, and this is something that obviously you and I understand in podcasting and broadcasting across the field, do not advertise what you cannot deliver. And that's why, again, I'm kind of loath to just say the top secretary of this department is the most responsible for this fiasco. But in this case, after what we saw in February, when Bondi said, hey, we're going to release all of these files, we're going to do it in these phases, and they invited all the influencers, some of whom we're friendly with, to the White House, and they said, here's a binder. They did a big photo op, and then the influencers walked away. They opened the binders and was like, wait a minute, we already know all of this. And it's like, wow, that's a terrible optics decision. No one's ever going to make this mistake again. And then they made it like 2 months later. And now here we are. Bondi got up in front of everyone and said, oh, the files are all here. We've got them. They're on my desk. Well, no, actually, she didn't mean these files. She meant like overall the files. Now there are no files. You don't have to answer for certain things if you don't make the promises. So even before we get to the cover-up argument, look, if you're going to make promises, you got to deliver. And the other White House media and the social media accounts, they understand that they're trying to deliver based on promises the president made. But if you promise everyone you've got the goods and you appoint people to the administration whom that is like part of their entire focus, and then you don't come up with the goods, yeah, Americans are going to go, where are the goods? You've been promising me the goods. Entire American corporate society has been built on promising the moon and then delivering a crappy gas station for the last 3 or 4 decades. And so I understand the president's frustration here, but I mean, come on. I mean, it's a classic American rug pull, and Americans have a right to be upset about it.
I totally agree with you about how this has unfolded. By the way, speaking of conspiracy, CMO313 points out Will Cain is a former Disney employee who loves the Cowboys and Jerry Jones. True. Yes, true. All of those are true facts. I don't know what they lend themselves to, but those are true facts. Maybe that's conspiracy about the way I'm handling some content here. They got me. I don't know what it is, man. But all of those things are true. Do I love Jerry Jones? I don't know, by the way. That's the only one that might be a little. I am a former Disney employee. I do love the Cowboys. Not sure I love Jerry. Like Jerry Jones, I think. Not sure I love Jerry Jones. By the way, Tony, here is comedian and podcaster, very successful podcaster, Andrew Schultz on what's going on within MAGA.
The only party right now that to me seems America first is the Democrat Socialist Party.
Yep.
Bernie is America first. Mamdani and all his ideas that he will not be able to execute, and I frankly think many of them are not good ideas, but he is no doubt New York first. The policies seem to want to help people here. That's what I care about. If MAGA wants to take this America first thing back, they got to start looking out for America, and it doesn't seem like they're doing. Lying to Americans is not America first.
I don't know. Real quick, Tony, while I have you here. Two-a-days, if you can bring yourself in, is the lying about Epstein, is that what he's referencing?
Yes, about
He's referencing
what you guys were talking about exactly.
Okay.
Kind of setting it up like there is something and then not delivering.
Okay. Well, first of all, there's a lot of ways, Tony, I want to talk about what I just heard from Andrew Schultz. So first, I think there is very fair criticism, as you point out, about the way this has been handled with Jeffrey Epstein. Two, I think that the administration of Donald Trump has done a remarkable job of living up to the promises of America first. From immigration policy to tariff policy to economic policy to foreign affairs, it has literally been the fulfillment. And even the Iranian bombing, if that's something they're pointing to, is not America first. I think what's happened, three, is that populism, and I like populism, seems to now define America first. And Mamdani is anything but America first. But he may be populist, right? He's a socialist populist.
Right.
He's not American populist. Like, he's wide open to anti-Western civilization, wide open to illegal immigration, wide open to all these other things that maybe play in New York in terms of populism, but certainly isn't an America first. So it makes me wonder, what does Andrew Schultz really want? If in any way, and I like Andrew a lot, if in any way you can look at Mamdani and say he's serving New Yorkers first, America first.
I think there's an element of First of all populism is emotionalism, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's saying, I don't like this thing. It should not be this way. And sometimes that's a very effective thing that a lot of people don't want to admit, that kids shouldn't be, being served trans porn in school. Yeah, I think that's something that we don't like and that should be, swept away. But then when you have someone in the opposition party, it's so much easier to politically campaign and to govern. That's a key part of it. And when you get, as the opposition party, the opportunity to say, Americans don't like this thing, it is bad, I would fix this thing. Well, that's going to be popular. Mamdani saying, I wish people had enough food to eat. Wow, that's a bold statement. I can't believe no one ever thought of that before. And then they get into power and, communism of 60, 70 million dead. So if you're looking at the history of these individuals, Bernie Sanders, he says that we give too much money to everyone else, so we're going to get up and praise Bernie Sanders for all of his, for what? For owning multiple lake houses and honeymooning in Moscow? Is that what's America first? I'm sorry, show me the things that Bernie has done. In this time, a senator from Vermont talking in angry voices on stage. What about that as America first? Show me, because what this sounds like is preening.
Well, I'll give you one.
But
I'll give you one on Bernie. He seems to understand the value of borders. Of all of these guys, at least he does understand the value of borders.
Not enough to break with the caucus in voting, though. And that's the thing. When he comes to campaign, he says, look, we have to have the borders because otherwise people will not have the jobs with the socialism. And when the problem is, when it comes to voting with the caucus, though, he still ends up breaking away. I mean, at least Fetterman, as many problems as Senator Fetterman has, occasionally does flip to Senator Betterman and does approve funding for things like ICE. Not if it's part of the big, beautiful bill, but he does approve of the general aspect of security in a way that Bernie Sanders will complain. He thinks ISIS tactics are very terrorist and it's very terrible. I'm flying around with AOC all the time. She tells me how terrible it is.
Yeah. Well, okay, but... So this is the problem with populism, that it is a fire that can burn out of control, and it is totally unmoored from any coherent set of ideas. I like a lot of things about populism. I used to simply hate populism. Now I understand the value of it. But I also think, like fire, it has to be controlled.
Absolutely.
Because it can easily veer into, and I'm putting a Coke machine in the Commons, right? Every campaign slogan of everybody running for vice president of student
their middle
council.
school classroom. Yeah.
Totally. Well, and the real world version of that is literally like in Mexican politics, handing out groceries in the voting line. That's buying votes. But it's like promising things, constantly promising things you cannot deliver, by the way, but making those promises. And that could be in Brazil or in Mexico, whatever it may be. And that's the version you're getting with Mamdani.
Or Louisiana in
Promises about what I'm gonna
1933,
give
even
you.
if it's from the right. Every man a king.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yes. But here's what I was going to get at, Tony. Check this out. This is the immigration policies right here under Donald Trump. And I found this concerning. This is according to Gallup. Okay, polling all the time, because most of the polling I've seen has said that his immigration policies have been really popular. This is the first one I've seen like this, where views of Donald Trump's handling of immigration. Do you strongly approve or just approve, disapprove, or strongly disapprove of the way he's handling it? I'm going to focus on independents because Republicans strongly approve and Democrats strongly disapprove. Independents, 14% strongly approve, 14% simply approve, 24% disapprove, 45% strongly disapprove. The independent strongly disapproving is concerning when you put it in the context of people like Andrew Schultz, who would not ever probably describe himself as a Republican, but I'm sure, and I think he said, voted for Donald Trump. It kind of makes you wonder what's going on here on this issue with the people that would have been brought in under the banner of populism.
I think that it's a really interesting poll from Gallup because it took place from June 2nd to the 26th. And these kind of long form polls where they're over an entire month, they're a little suspicious to me. As a former science STEM teacher, data guy that looks at this kind of stuff, a lot of the other spot polls, so for example, the ones that you were alluding to, that from New York Times and ABC and CBS that showed a majority of support for mass deportation. It doesn't kind of coincide with what appears to be this data campaign suggesting they're dropping by, as the one Democrat House member said, a Latino at the Home Depot, suggesting they're just running and picking up average people all the time. No, it turns out that arresting pedophiles and arresting domestic abusers is popular in American culture. That's why I think spot polls usually show a higher approval, but I need to see how many independents as opposed to Republicans and Democrats they showed, and Gallup is really loath to share that stuff. Like if you ask a Gallup pollster that, you're blocked instantly.
Right. And by the way, back to that, the general spot polls you're talking about, it's not just deport pedophiles. I mean, mass deportations implies
Is the
deport
centrist
illegal
position.
immigrants, period.
Yeah.
Right. All right, the Daily Signals, Tony Kinnett. Check him out, the Daily Signal. We always appreciate having him both on both shows, and appreciate you today being on Will Cain Country. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Will. Take care.
When I wasn't driving around the countryside this weekend, I went and saw F1, the new Brad Pitt popcorn vehicle. What is my review? Next on Will Cain Country. Never really watched Formula One, but I watched the movie F1. It is Will Cain Country, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page. We hope you'll hit subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or in the comments section. Jump in and join our conversation. Tinfoil 2 days. I saw a Instagram post from The Ringer with Bill Simmons talking about the phases of Brad Pitt's career. I listened to Brad Pitt on the Dax Shepard podcast. My wife listens to Dax Shepard a lot. She always tells me, oh, this, that, armchair expert. And I've tried it, and it's not for me, okay? That's all I'm going to say. It's not for me. And but Brad Pitt gives so few interviews, I was like, I'm kind of curious, and there was some clips floating around. And he had alluded to various stages of his career where he was unhappy with what he was being pitched or what he had starred in. And I was just thinking about this when I saw the Bill Simmons clip, like the phases of Brad Pitt's career. And honestly, I never really felt like he had a big down period. Like I was just scrolling through his career, like starting in 1991 with Thelma and Louise. It's often running after that, like every year. Not every movie is gigantic, but every year. 92, he's got A River Runs Through It. 93, he's got True Romance. 94, he's got Legends of the Fall. 95, he has 7. 96, he's got Sleepers. 97, he's got The Devil's Own and 7 Years in Tibet. 98, you got Meet Joe Black, which by a lot of people hate it. I didn't hate it.
I love
By this
that
point,
movie.
He's carrying something.
I love that movie so much.
If he's in it at this point, you're like, oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Listen to this. I mean, we're still rolling. 99 Fight Club. 2000 Snatch. 2001 Spy Game and Ocean's 11. And by the way, the Mexican along with Julia Roberts. He doesn't really have anything in 03. By 04, he's back to Ocean's 12 and Troy. Troy wasn't very good. Then he's in his Brangelina days, right? He's got Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 05.
Fun.
In 06, he's in Babel, which is pretty good,
Great
and
movie.
The Departed. Why am I having trouble remembering him in The Departed? Who
I
was
don't
Brad
remember
Pitt
him
in The Departed?
He was not.
I don't either. Or maybe it's as a producer. Maybe that's what that is.
Yeah.
07, you got Ocean's 13 and the assassination of Jesse James. 08, every year now we've had something that I personally would have wanted to see. 08, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and Burn After Reading. 09, Inglourious Bastards. 10, I don't see one. Okay, I don't see one. Eat, Pray, Love, or that he produced that. 10, nothing. That's the first year. 11, though, we're back. Moneyball. 12, Killing Them Softly. I really like that movie. A lot of people, I don't know if they care. I loved Killing Them Softly.
Great
I
movie.
read that book, too.
Yep.
13, you got World War Z and 12 Years a Slave. 14, you got Fury, which I really liked Fury.
Amazing.
Did y'all ever see that? The tank
Yeah.
movie?
I think that's
Yeah.
like a guy love movie.
Right. 15, he's got The Big Short. 16, he's got The Lost City of Z, which I watched. He's a producer in that one. He starred in Allied. I never saw Allied. That's
was really
the spy
good.
movie.
Yeah. Marion Cotillard.
17, nothing much. War Machine, I didn't see that. I remember seeing it. All right, this is the slow period for me. 17, 18, I don't see anything. 19, he's back. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Killed it.
20, nothing. He killed it in that. 22, he's got The Lost City. I think, is that the one about the Amazon and Babylon? He slows down recently, actually. It's 24, Wolves, which I told you I never saw with George Clooney. And then 25, he's got F1. I mean, that's remarkable to me. That is over 20 years. That's 30 years of a hit that I would want to see at least. I don't know, box office hit. Every year. I don't see a Brad Pitt slow period for 30 years. Do you guys disagree?
No, I agree. But he also did the McConaughey thing where he was a little heartthrobby at first and then showed his acting chops and then really solidified himself as a good actor.
I think a lot of them do that.
I
DiCaprio.
think what was his start? Titanic, I guess.
Titanic, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Titanic,
I mean-
and like the girls were all into him on that sitcom.
What sitcom?
What was it?
He only did
It was on a
movies.
I
sitcom,
don't remember him on a sitcom.
He only
Yeah, he
did
did.
movies.
like Growing
DiCaprio.
Pains or something. Yeah,
He was not in that.
it
He
wasn't
was
Growing
super
Pains.
young.
It was like
He might
one
have
of
been,
those.
too.
It was an early sitcom, but it was in his career.
Oh, he was on Growing Pains, yeah.
Well, Dax Shepard never asked, like, what are you talking about? What movies do you regret? What choices did you dislike? But I'm looking at this, seeing a guy who is picking movies that, as a dude, I want to see most of the time. I like that he picks dude movies, by the way.
Yes.
A lot of them. You know what I mean? Like, these are every one of these that come up are kind of subject matter that I'm interested in. So that brings me to this weekend and going to see F1, which everybody said you got to see in the theater. And it's good. I'm giving F1 a 7 out of 10. Now, my thing on it is it's a little long. It doesn't need to be that long. My wife's first thing she said when you walk out, you could cut 20 minutes of that movie and you'd be just fine. But, it's a story of not washed up, but maybe, not a washed up race car driver that gets a shot to come back to F1 and brings his rough and tumble ways to this glitzy glamour sport and learns how to be a team player and help a young guy along in his career. And
Classic.
it's pretty good. Yeah. And by the way, that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, tinfoil, this is what people want. They want to have a good time at the movies. And that's what it's designed to be. A good time. By the way, I don't watch F1.
Love it.
It's not the sport.
It's on at like 7 a.m. on Sundays,
but
by the way.
Which is a good thing,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the things that brought me to soccer, Dan. Like, I could wake up and there's nothing else on and watch sports first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge car racing guy. Like, I did a NASCAR phase. I got into it, but it doesn't hook me and keep me. I'm not sure this would either. I will say you come away from this movie and you're like, these things are rocket ships. They are science-based rocket ships, and driving them is a video game. Like the little steering wheel and the buttons they push. And I think they can do a lot of it in a simulator. Like it's
Oh, yeah.
outside of the G-forces that you experience, which is huge. But I would currently say, I don't know where it ranks because there's some other good F1 movies that you brought up. Like I saw Senna. I saw the one with, is it Liam Hemsworth? Not Chris, right?
Chris.
Liam Hemsworth. Was it Chris?
Uh-huh.
Whatever that movie was.
Rush.
Ford versus Ferrari.
It's about James Hunt and Daniel Bruhl. It's a real story.
I'll say this. I don't think I like F1 as much as Ford versus Ferrari. I liked that more.
The problem with F1 is that the winning disparity is so vast. So there's 3 teams that win everything, and then everybody else just doesn't have enough money to keep up. So you're watching Mercedes, Red Bull, and 2 other teams win everything.
Ferrari.
Yeah.
Right. But the best, to this day, I will stand by this. And I don't care if this is nostalgia or what it is. As much as I like Ford versus Ferrari or Rush or F1, the best racing movie is Days of Thunder. It just is.
Never saw that.
It is amazing. You never saw Days of Thunder?
No.
It's Tom Cruise.
It is Top Gun in a race car.
Really?
It's the same movie in a race car.
Interesting.
Yes.
Does it hold up, you think?
It's amazing. I think so. For me, if it's on and that music comes on and
what's the
and
song?
You're looking at Talladega.
There's a song.
I'm mixing it up with
it.
I want to do the Top Gun. Dun, dun,
I know.
dun. I don't know.
Hold on.
But by the way, Robert Duvall's in this. Robert Duvall's in Days of Thunder, and he might be. If Robert Duvall's in it as well, I'm especially when he's playing that kind of guy, like a Southern or a cowboy guy. Come on. Is he the greatest character actor of all time? He is a character actor, right? Like, yeah, there you go. I mean, race
So
cars are getting rolled
cheesy.
out on the track right now.
So cheesy.
The flag is being raised over Daytona. I mean, this is what's happening as you're hearing that.
It looks sick.
Definitely
I'm gonna watch
Days
it
of
tonight.
Thunder. You should watch it. Yeah, give us your review of
I
Days
will.
of Thunder on the heels of our review of F1. I would love to hear your Days of Thunder review. Remember, it's the 90s. The effects aren't going to be as good.
True.
It's going to be a little cheesier probably, but it's Tom Cruise. All right, so I do think it's worth seeing. I think it's worth seeing in the theater. It's another entry into the canon of Brad Pitt. Go check out F1. That's going to do it for us today here on Will Cain Country. We're going to be back here, same time, same place tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe at Apple or Spotify or on YouTube, and we'll see you again next time.